International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor says the growing opportunities in the country's hydrogen economy and the rise of startup companies must be highlighted at the World Economic Forum currently underway in Davos, Switzerland. She says while the country faces a number of challenges, the message that must be taken to the international investment community is one of that South Africa is willing and able to deal with its challenges. Meanwhile, Minister Pandor is scheduled to host the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sergey Lavrov, on Monday. Well, to talk to us a little bit more about it, we are joined by the Minister who is in Davos at the moment, and it's a pleasure to have her talking to us this morning. Minister, thank you for your time. Thanks so much for chatting to us all the way from Davos this morning. Minister, that we seem to have lost your sound.
Lovely.
There we go.
Good morning. No, here I'm sorry.
Not a problem at all.
Didn't press the right button.
Not a problem. Great
to have you. Good morning,
you.
And morning to the viewers as well.
It's an absolute pleasure. Nice to have you, Minister. So, yeah, going into Davos, I mean, this has already been one that we've seen the President, that he's had to cancel the trip. Obviously, you are there with another delegation that is going to represent South Africa. But already South Africa not getting off on the right footing as we enter into this year with regard to the electricity crisis. Talk to us how this is going to affect the trip and in terms of finding investment and the reputation of South Africa.
Well, I think that it's really important that President Ramaphosa ensured that there is a strong South African government delegation here, and that we connected very well with the private sector delegates, as well as stakeholders in other sectors in South Africa before departing from South Africa. So the presence of the Minister of Finance, Minister of Trade, Minister of Human Settlements, and myself is an important affirmation of our interest in connecting with the wider global community that is present here, as well as being available to frankly and honestly answer some of the troubling questions that some of the business leaders do have. So we've been able to give assurance where this is necessary, present governments strategies that are directed at addressing the challenges confronting our country. There are concerns. I don't want to in any way undermine or brush over these. People are asking quite hard questions, especially around electricity availability. They're concerned that we want them to bring plants for productive purposes to South Africa as foreign direct investment, and they want us to have an adequate energy supply for their plants to function so that they generate an income and livelihood. So we've presented the plans that government has underway and indicated the urgency with which President Ramaphosa is, with his government, attending to this issue.
Yeah. Minister, rightly so that the delegation is going to have a tough task ahead of it to answer a lot of questions, because South Africans are asking the same question. And this is really a very difficult time for South Africans. And to start the year in such a manner, and the anger among South Africans, I'm going to put aside the delegates at the World Economic Forum just for a moment. We'll get to that now. But, you know, the reality is that South Africans are struggling. Businesses are closing. The economy has stagnated, and there appears to be no hope. And that is just the very basic feeling amongst South Africans now. You can go out and tell the international community what you like, but what do you tell people sitting at home that you've got lights in your hotel room, they don't have lights at home?
No, absolutely. And this is why I've said that we must be frank and honest, that we're facing a deeply challenging problem. But I also would say to them, we're not sitting down, resting on our laurels. We are looking at solutions and have identified an action plan that I am of the belief will work and address the challenges. To the people of our country, as a member of government, I can only say, really, I'm deeply sorry. I do understand the anger. I've been seeing some of the comments on social media and the anger directed toward us as the delegation in Davos. But we have to continue striving for our country. The government and other stakeholders must continue to find a solution. And I believe that we have to strive on. So part of what we present is, yes, there are deep difficulties, really horrible. Our people are inconvenienced in a most horrible fashion. So we have to find a way, in addition to addressing the power outages, I think the government will have to look at what form of support is given to those who've lost businesses and who've really suffered the worst economic consequences. Those discussions must be held.
Okay.
But we are facing a challenge other countries have confronted in the past. We must address it, and that's really the response that we have to give.
What is the plan? So perhaps you can let us into the plan, because if you're going there with the sort of plan to tell the world, look, this is what we've got in place, this is how we are going to get through this. What is that plan? Perhaps you can let us know.
Well, I think, I hope that the SABC would have been outlining the 10-point plan that has been announced by the Energy Committee that was established by the President last year. I understand that following the meeting with stakeholders and the energy sector on Monday, a plan was announced. I did read of it in one other publication, which I won't mention to be fair to SABC, but I'm sure SABC has been covering the issue that the maintenance plan is going to be strengthened and attention will be given to a number of power stations that are not performing at maximal level, in addition to continued implementation of the energy mix strategy that government has been implementing with a particular focus on renewable energy resources. So, we're aware of this, and I think the urgent attention to those 4 or 5 power stations is an important step. And I hope that the government team assigned to this will understand the wrath of the people of South Africa and their anger, and ensure that they do not fail to make good on the plan announced from Monday's meeting.
Yeah. So, I mean, to look more at that, I mean, there's definitely urgent steps that are needed, because when you look at the feeling amongst businesses going in there, and I know that you are fully aware of the reports that are doing the round, and this is all ahead of the World Economic Forum. One of the biggest issues that those businesses and those people that are surveyed with regard to going into the World Economic Forum, the worry for South Africa is the total collapse of the state. Now, that in itself is something, I mean, energy is just one aspect of it, but to walk into it in the presence of 2 other countries that are facing the same issues, according to those that were surveyed, and this is official World Economic reports that have come out from the forum, basically talking, this is the biggest problem facing South Africa, is the failure of the state and the collapse of institutions. This is a great worry. It really is. It's the first time South Africa is going into the World Economic Forum with this hanging over its head.
I'm reading that report, and I wish to respond to it in debates that I'll be part of today, because I really think that is overstretching the nature of challenge South Africa is confronting. You cannot have a situation in which public education institutions continue to function, government departments continue to function, a very significant financial sector continues to function, and a wide range, of government institutions. So when you say failure of the state, so I am keen, and I haven't been able to isolate from that very general statement exactly what the elements or nature of this failure is. So I will be debating with some of the colleagues from the forum, and I want them to give me the examples so that I'm able to respond.
Yeah. Minister, I mean, I just off the cuff, I mean, we look at doors closed in businesses, the fact that they're not getting the electricity from government. There is a problem with the water, the quality of the water. We're looking at the policing, where we have one of the highest crime rates in the world, where policing is a major issue and we never ever solve these things. We look at the transport and the rail system here in South Africa, which is falling apart. We don't need to look further than just those few that I have mentioned, and these are all state-run, and we can look further into state-run institutions that are falling apart at the seams, and they don't seem to be any solutions to fix them. That, in my understanding, is a failing state.
Well, Leanne, in the UK, people are having to wait 3 years to have an operation in the national health system. The rail sector is on strike. Workers, health professionals are on strike for the first time in many years. But they would never define their situation as a failed state. There are many aspects of success in South Africa, which are reported by the very global institutions that you referred to. So, I have said to you that one of the things that we do in the various discussions that we are part of is indicate that there are challenges. But we also say that there are opportunities, there are areas of good performance and success in our country. I would never go into a global forum or even a local one and say that, our country's dead, nothing is working. This is totally dishonest and actually would be challenged by an honest analysis of the full flood of institutions that make up South Africa. Yeah. Undeniable, Leanne, and no way would I refuse to accept that there are businesses that have collapsed, that this is extremely worrying, that we had COVID-19 and its impact, we lost many people, that we do have public institutions that don't function, we have local government institutions that fail us almost on a consistent basis, but we do have some successes in our country. We do have areas of quality. So I can't come to an international stage and stand up and say we're the worst country in the world. I think this would be a total intellectual dishonesty, and I would not be part of it.
And we would hope you would not do that, because we certainly aren't, because we're a country that strive to be the best that we can under the situation, and we understand that, Minister. But, the reality is that when you do, unfortunately, look deeper into the governance of South Africa, we look into mass corruption, and this has led us into the situation. And South Africans are a nation that try and make things happen despite the circumstances, and that I know is one thing that we certainly do. But when we talk about corruption and we talk about backhanded deals and things that are happening in the upper levels of government that have filtered down into a lot of departments and a lot of money that has just disappeared, whether it be in all sectors, and I know you speak about health, that's one sector that we could look at. As much as we compare ourselves to the UK and the NHS as what they're going through, but we also want to move into our national health system. But if you walk into a hospital these days, any public hospital, many people fear that they won't walk out again and that the service they get is very much so below average. But let's talk and address the issue of corruption within government, because many point to that as one of the biggest problems that this country has to deal with.
Corruption is a terrible cancer, and it's something that every society should fight when it occurs in a country. and it is something we are battling as South Africa. There are people who are arrested, there are cases underway, and this is how you respond to these problems. We need to create new social ethos in our country, new values. We need ethical leaders. So there are challenges indeed that confront us. But I really would quarrel with the notion that it is only the government persons who are corrupt. It occurs in the private sector as well, and often the instigation comes from there. So we do have this huge growth in corruption in South Africa, hence the steps that have been taken to combat it. And it's a battle all of us as South Africans must fight, from the traffic officer who seeks a bribe to the ordinary citizen who pays some price to get an ID card quickly. All of us must battle it. And let me say, I hate dishonesty, I hate theft, and I would never countenance taking money from our people and utilize it for my own interests. I think it's absolutely disgusting, and I support those people being in court, being found guilty, and imprisoned. So that, on corruption, I would agree with you. Serious problem, must fight it. Don't allow it to get entrenched, because that's the end of our country. I think that is one of our most serious problems.
Yeah, Minister, I want to get more into who you're going to be meeting with, and
I wanted to say that there are very good public hospitals in South Africa. Not all of them are dismal. I just needed to say that because some of our health professionals are amazing.
Yeah. Well, most of our health professionals are amazing, and this is the reality, is that South Africans, as I mentioned before, are those that come up and do all they can against the odds, and I mean that in the most sincere possible way. Minister, before I let you go, because I know that we have to wrap this up, and obviously there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of business that you need to attend to while you were there at the forum. What is the sort of, I've gathered the key message that you're going to have to get. I mean, you're getting it from me, and me representing South Africans speaking to you, hoping that you can go out there and find solutions and sell the country, get investment, do whatever it is you need. But that key message that you are taking to investments in the global community.
Well, essentially, there are a range of key messages. Firstly, the matter of seeking greater investment in our country, and particularly that being investment that has a job-creating outcome to it, and also sharing the concern we continue to have about income inequality in our country and the need to attack income inequality quite decisively. Then, of course, just the aspects that make South Africa a competitive investment destination. We have, despite the discussion we've just had, really quality institutions, and I believe that our financial sector ranks among the best in the globe. In terms of our tax administration, we again rank among the best in the world, and these are regulatory assurances that investors do like, because they don't want to be in a tax system where you're taxed 10 Rand one day and 10 million Rand the next day. We can assure them that we have laws, we have institutions that do function and that are able to execute their mandate appropriately. We also are talking about some of the global rankings that we enjoy as a country, given, for example, being a leading producer of platinum group metals, platinum being very important in the green economy that is enjoying much debate here at Davos. And then we have a plan, the Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, and its 6 key sectors that we're focused upon, not just as government, but as South Africa. And then climate change and our response to it, because everybody wants to know, what are you doing about climate change? What is the commitment? We are ready to help support, but what is it that you actually want to do? So we talk about the Just Transition Energy Plan, and again, in the context of addressing inequality and poverty and not harming and denying livelihoods to communities that rely on coal for an income. So looking at really presenting a diverse set of key messages to ensure that there is an understanding that South Africa is alive. And it's not just the government, by the way, delegation sharing these messages. It's also the private sector colleagues who are here and others from NGOs. And we're saying we're alive to the diversity of challenges that confront not just South Africa, but the globe. And we have plans that we are implementing to address them.
All right, Minister, we'll have to leave it there for this morning. But thank you for talking to us, and we of course will certainly be following and watching very, very closely back home as to some of the outcomes of this meeting there. But of course, the International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor speaking to us about the World Economic Forum, and she is there alongside some other ministers, of course, and the ministerial delegation, as well as the finance minister and a lot of business leaders that are there too at the World Economic Forum.